There's a lot of very angry gamers on the internet right now talking about this new service by PlayStation called PlayStation Plus Premium. This is apparently going to be a paid subscription service that gives access to over 700 games. Now, what these games are, we don't exactly know yet. It is going to be retro stuff, it is going to be new stuff, but now PlayStation has explicitly said they're not going to put the latest and greatest games because they feel like it would hurt the quality of it. So people are sort of taking this as a knock to Game Pass. It sounds like PlayStation is straight up saying that Game Pass is no good. And people are very, very pissed about that. So what we're going to do today is I want to look at this statement, I want to see what it means, and then I want to look at a bunch of very angry tweets from both PlayStation fans and Xbox people. But I do want to make it clear before we start to really dig into this, no hate to anybody that's shown in this video. I just wanted to give some ideas because I think the debate is fascinating, but absolutely no hate to anyone. What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, and please, if you could, like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, let's dig into the mess. So first and foremost, let's begin by reading the quote from PlayStation boss Jim Ryan. Here's a short synopsis where they're basically saying that while this new PlayStation Plus service is going to have quite a few games on it, it's not going to add first-party exclusives at launch. Now, they did this whole article, this whole deep dive interview on gamesindustry.biz, but it's actually kind of fascinating. We feel like we're in a good, virtuous cycle with studios, where the investments deliver success, which enables yet more investment, which delivers yet more success. We feel like that cycle, and we like what the gamers are doing with it. So it sounds like what they're basically saying is that when we buy studios, we want them to work, we want them to be motivated, we want them to sell more copies of the game, and then thus turn that into more sales, turn that into more projects, turn that into bigger exclusives in the future. From a business standpoint, that completely makes sense, but here is the quote that I feel like is definitely pissing off the internet. In terms of putting our own games into the service or any of the services upon release, as you well know, this is not a road that we've gone down in the past, and it's not a road that we're going to go down with this new service. We feel like if we were to do that with games we make at PlayStation, the virtuous cycle would be broken. The level of investment that we need to make in our studios would not be possible, and we think the knock-on effect of the quality of the games that we would make is not something that gamers want. They're basically saying if we made PlayStation Game Pass, it would directly hurt the games. Now, that's a pretty strong take. In fact, people have already been talking about the fact that essentially what they just said is Game Pass is not the future of gaming. Sony is making a very clear statement, make no mistake. Now, to be honest, I am of two minds. I am very excited about this new service by PlayStation, but more about the retro side of it. I do think it's expensive, the fact that we're going to be paying $18 every single month to have access to old school games, the fact that there isn't a native way to play PlayStation 3 on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. I certainly have my disappointments, but I will say that part of it just comes down to the fact that I am a big fan of Xbox Game Pass. I think it's really cool the fact that Game Pass really gives that ability to just shop and pick stuff up. Like right now, for an example, I've been playing a bunch of Tunic, and to be quite frank, that's not a game I'd probably buy. It seems like it's just not my specific cup of tea of a Fox Zelda game, but when I started playing it, it is very, very fun, and I picked it up specifically because it was on Game Pass. But now, let's get a bit more into the angry stuff. People are saying that they absolutely hate Jim Ryan. There is stuff like this. Mr. Matty, he does a lot of Xbox content. He does an Xbox podcast and stuff, and he says this: if I'm Xbox, I'm feeling pretty good about Xbox Game Pass today. Basically saying that people who are trying to compare PlayStation Plus Premium versus Xbox Game Pass, these are very, very unparalleled business models. Moving on here, though, this is Colt Eastwood. He's actually a big Xbox YouTuber and a good friend of mine. I've actually been on his podcast. It seems like he's pretty much calling out PlayStation and saying that what they're saying is flat out untrue. It's practically a lie. Our service, saying that our games are too good for a subscription, this excuse just doesn't work anymore. Pretty strong words. It's pretty clear that people are just upset more by the messaging of PlayStation than even by their actions. Now, I want to talk about this one. This is a weird one. Paul Tassi, obviously of forbescom, saying basically, fundamentally, you can criticize Sony for not doing day one releases like Game Pass, and yet it seems pretty clear to me that it's just not good business for them when they're selling 20 million copies of games like Horizon Zero Dawn. Now, I feel like this is the major crux that a lot of people are sort of forgetting, which is that PlayStation is being a little bit deceitful. PlayStation is acting like they have to do this. Oh, we want to make good games, we have to wait. Oh, we want to try and do the biggest experiences, but we're going to hold off. And the reason they're saying that they can't put them in the subscription service is because straight up, they're going to make more money. Now, here's a take that honestly kind of shocked me because it's kind of savage in a way, but it really seems to insult the fact that these companies, their battle is not always to our benefit. I'm impressed by the people that think Sony wants to get in and mud wrestle with Microsoft over who can race to the bottom the fastest. Sony's the market leader in AAA with the best-in-class first-party exclusives. Microsoft is in third place and has pretty much zero homegrown exclusives. Holy heck, Sony has been cultivating a pretty distinct strategy for over 15 years now, slowly and steadily building up extremely strong and distinctly internal studios who consistently deliver popular original IP. Microsoft has a bunch of acquired, also ran and gave away their games. Jesus. So he's basically saying, look, the difference right now between Sony and Microsoft is that Sony is trying to grow the trees that they've already been planting, whereas Microsoft is trying to buy trees and plant them now. That's kind of a rude way to put it, but I feel like it also sort of reflects on the fact that things are different right now when it comes to Sony versus Microsoft versus Nintendo, which is the fact that of the big three, Sony is in first place with console sales. They are in first place of software sales in a lot of ways, but they also have problems with the fact that Sony just does not have as much raw cash saved up, which means that when a Sony game fails, it hurts Sony badly. Whereas in a weird way, Microsoft doesn't even care if you buy their games as long as you're subscribed to Game Pass. They don't even care if you buy an Xbox as long as you're subscribed to Game Pass. You can play the games on PC and they're still happy. Sony is that unique spot where they need you to buy their games. They need you to buy those games day one, and they need you to buy a PlayStation. That's part of what this whole service is all about. Now, here's another insult I've seen people talking about, which is the fact that Sony just keeps seeming like they want an Xbox Game Pass competitor, but they won't fully commit. They have a subscription service, but it doesn't have the latest and greatest games. It has retro stuff, but it's not natively running retro stuff. It's such a weird mix. It's a half measure of a lot of stuff. To me, as somebody that has really been craving some retro games on current platforms, this to me seems like a big W other than the price, but I understand a lot of the very vitriolic pushback. I want to end this with this is a hardcore Sony fanboy, good friend of mine, Pio. He says this: I'm very happy that Sony is not going to be putting their $100 to $200 million AAA single-player games into a subscription service. These games are insanely expensive, and people can support them enough. God of War Ragnarok will not sell 20 million if it has a PlayStation Plus day one commitment. Realistic thinking, in my opinion. I think this is all a very interesting debate because honestly, it is something I feel like Sony themselves is probably struggling with. The major effort I think people are kind of just forgetting is the fact that PlayStation Plus Premium exists for a specific reason, which is the fact that they want to get existing people to pay more. The whole idea behind this is not to get in new fans. It's not to get people who weren't buying PlayStation games to play PlayStation games. The whole idea behind this, from my point of view, is the already existing PlayStation Plus subscribers will hopefully upgrade to the tens of millions of people, to the tens of millions of people that have been paying the $10 a month to try and get access to PlayStation Online. They're hoping that, a chunk of those people will upgrade to this new $18 a month service to get access to these extra games, both retro and new. It's very fascinating, but let's see what the library actually turns out to be. I am hopeful, I am excited, but I am trying to temper my expectations a bit. What do you think? Are you excited for the future of PlayStation? Does this confuse you, or are you just waiting for God of War Ragnarok? Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a giant thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all, and keep dreaming. And go play Spider-Man, especially Miles Morales. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.